Are you one of those people who drive around in neighborhoods in the spring and go, "Oh my gosh, I love all those beautiful tulips. I want some." Well, if you want some, you have to plant them in the fall. Now's the time to plant them. Let me show you. You watched us design and build this house in 150 days, but the work is far from over. We're about to jump into my favorite part of the process of bringing all this together. Join me for an exclusive look right here on eHow Home. Who doesn't love spring flowering bulbs? Well, I certainly do. Tulips are one of my all-time favorite flowers. If you love tulips and you have a favorite color, I'd love to know what you love. Mine, well, I'm crazy about these apricot colored ones. I plant them everywhere. And I'm planting some called Minton. And this is the time of year to do it. It's fall. If you want those spring blooms in March and April and May, you gotta plant them now. So what I've done here is I've prepared a bed. Now this isn't going to be all bulbs. We're going to overplant it later with some things. But what I like to do is work the soil up. And you can see that the soil is really deep. So I can drive this trowel into the ground almost 9 inches. And that's what you want. When I plant bulbs, I want a lot of visual impact. I tend to plant a lot of the same variety or varieties that work together in terms of color. I also want to think of when they bloom. You may not know this, but depending on the variety of tulip you choose, you can get varieties that bloom early in the season, midway in the season, and late in the season. So when you're thinking about planting some tulips this fall, and I hope you will, think about that because you can have a continuous bloom. In this case, since I'm so crazy about Minton, I'm going to do a big grouping of them here, a grouping of them there, and then one down there. Then I'm going to fill in with a lot of spring blooming annuals over them. And I'm telling you, next spring, this flower bed will be a knockout. So let's get back to planting these bulbs. When I plant the bulbs, I like to plant them about 25 to a group, a nice drift. And I plant them, you know, about 8 inches apart. And one of the rules for depth is to plant the bulb 3 times. You want to cover the bulb 3 times its width. So if it's this wide, 1, 2, 3, you'd want it about that deep. And so I've dug a hole about that deep here. You just take a little fertilizer. I like to use an organic fertilizer for bulbs, specifically blended for it. About a tablespoon in there, and I work it around a little bit, and then I drop the bulb in. You want the flat end or the basal plate in toward the soil, like that. What I like to do is go along and plant them so I can see them. So this one I'll come in, and I'll put this one next to this one so I can see exactly where they are. You get the idea. Put a little fertilizer in there, drop it in. Then I'll work my way around and I'll have this entire bed planted. Then I can decide whether I need to protect them, because I know a lot of you have asked me questions about how do you protect your tulip bulbs from squirrels. Well, one of the best things to do is once you get the bed planted, you can take some chicken wire, and this is coated with a little black plastic so you don't see it, and you can just roll this out over the top of the bed and just leave it there. Cover it with leaves, cover it with mulch, whatever you want. This will keep those little rascals from digging up your tulip bulbs. Then, when winter is over, and when you just begin to see the tips of those little bulbs pushing up, you can take the chicken wire off, put the mulch back around it, the bulbs will come up. At that point, the squirrels don't really care because the bulb is already rooted in. It's no longer a bulb, it's a full-grown plant, and your bulbs will come up and bloom beautifully. This is a trick that's really worked well for me over the years. So when those temperatures begin to cool, make sure you go to the garden center and get lots of bulbs and get them planted. You'll be glad you did in the spring. And hey, if you're enjoying these tips on bulb planting and other things, tell a friend about them. And make sure you subscribe to eHow Home. Now I got to get back to work.